Hi, everyone. I'm Rena Ninan. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to the news out of Utah of a man's release from Venezuela in just a moment. But first, we begin with a stunning development in the saga over the U.S.-North Korea summit. On Saturday, South Korean President Moon Jae-in met with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. This was a surprise meeting that took place inside the demilitarized zone on the North Korean side. Their talks come just 2 days after the president canceled his June 12th summit with Kim Jong Un, only to then suggest that it may still take place. Mola Lenghi joins us now from the White House. Mola, what more do we know about this meeting?
Well, as you mentioned, surprise meeting between Moon Jae-in, the president of South Korea, and the North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un. It was held in the DMZ, and they discussed the possible summit between President Trump and leader Kim. Of course, this was a follow-up to the historic and symbolic meeting that the two men had just last month in the DMZ. That was a meeting where the two men said that they would work toward denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. They would work toward officially ending the decades-long war between the two countries. And of course, there was a lot of hope, a lot of promise after that meeting. Some would argue that it sort of set the stage for this possible summit between the U.S. and North Korea. And of course, a lot has happened since then with regards to that possible summit. That meeting was a little more planned. It was choreographed. It was symbolic. It seems the purpose of today's meeting was a bit more substantive. The two men were said to be talking about getting the train back on the track, so to speak, with regards to the summit. Both in the North and the South appear to be showing an effort towards each other, showing that they both want the summit to happen. And, you know, both sides were really surprised, and really the world was surprised when the president canceled the summit on Thursday. In that letter, at the time, President Moon said that he was puzzled, he was bewildered, he was embarrassed. Even he used the word embarrassed by the announcement. He really wasn't given a heads up that the president was canceling the meeting. The North Koreans, interestingly, responded to the president's letter by saying that they were still willing to meet anytime, any place. And the president then responded by saying that that was a very nice statement. And since then, we've sort of seen the pendulum swing back in the direction of having the meeting and perhaps even keeping that June 12th date that was originally scheduled, perhaps.
I want to ask you about that June 12th date. The president said on Friday that the summit could still happen. Do you get the sense that the administration is really preparing for that possibility?
Well, they're certainly preparing for it. But the president, you know, has used that phrase that he likes to use that often keeps us hanging. We'll see. We'll see what happens. He said that yesterday. At the moment, the June 12th date is officially off. It is off the table. Of course, it's off the table until it's not. But the president said that June 12th was still a possibility. He even tweeted that out this morning, saying that it is still possible. But that, you know, he's also said in the last 24 hours that that date could also be pushed back. So not really taking a firm position on when that meeting could actually unfold. So all of that obviously still being worked out behind the scenes. The real takeaway here is that everyone seems to be talking again after, you know, sort of suspending talks for a day or two. With regards to the White House, President Trump insisted via tweet this morning, this is a subsequent tweet, that there is zero disagreement within the White House, within the Trump administration, as how to deal with North Korea. The president referring to a New York Times article that suggested that not everyone is on the same page and there's not enough time to have the meeting on June 12th if the administration is, in fact, aiming for that date. Nevertheless, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said this morning that a pre-advance team will now leave for Singapore this weekend as originally scheduled. That meeting was somewhat in question, but we're now told that staffers will go ahead and go. They will prepare, as Sarah put it, should the summit take place. Should the summit take place. So the White House operating from a position, at least publicly, that the summit currently is off the table, but in the event that it does take a last-minute turn and that it is back on the table, perhaps at the last minute, the White House wants to be prepared. And obviously, you know, at this point, based on everything that we've seen, there could be a last-minute swing. Really, no one would be surprised, considering the way things have really played out here in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, it's certainly been the pendulum swinging back and forth quite a bit. Mola Lenghi, thank you so much for keeping an eye on this from the White House. Joining me now is Isaac Stonefish. He's a senior fellow at the Asia Society and a CBSN contributor. Isaac, are you surprised that we've seen the South and North Korean leader get together in this meeting?
Wish I could say I stopped being surprised at all of the changes that have happened. This was certainly a surprise when I woke up this morning and saw this. And you got to hand it to President Moon. He's really working really hard and expending a lot of his political capital to try to get this meeting back on track.
So when President Moon, South Korean president, was here at the White House just a short time ago, a few weeks ago, he was really complimentary of President Trump. Do you get the sense that, before he came into office, he said that this was dealing with North Koreans and talking to them was something of a priority. Do you get the sense that he's acting alone by holding this? Is he working in tandem with the White House?
I would say that privately, certainly Moon is feeling less complimentary towards Trump after the surprise announcement that they were canceling the summit. And I do think that while he's possibly not coordinating these moves closely with the White House, they have the same goals. They both want to see the summit reinstated, or at least Trump seems to want to see the summit reinstated. There's certainly people in the administration who almost certainly don't. But it does feel like Moon and Trump do have the same plan, which is let's get the Americans and the North Koreans together and talk.
And this is the second time that the North and South Korean leaders have actually met in the past month. What would it mean if do you actually see a possibility of them maybe brokering something on their own without the U.S.? Is that realistic?
I think they really need the United States with this, because the U.S. is one of the most important countries that North Korea has to deal with. The U.S. and China are North Korea's two most important relationships. And a deal without the United States, probably North Korea wouldn't accept it. The U.S. would be very upset. China would also be upset because they want to have the U.S. involved in the North Korean problem. So I really think it's more likely that Moon is really trying to put the pieces together for Trump, who kind of needs the help.
They've said at the White House they're always looking at potential of a military option, something nobody wants to see. But is there really, with two nuclear powers, a real viable military option?
Option is kind of a nice wiggle word here. It's certainly, the U.S. has the option of going in and striking North Korea. I think it's a terrible option. I think the costs would be immense, both for South Korean lives, American lives, and North Korean lives. But hopefully it's something that, with talks seemingly back on, possibly that we won't have to think about for now.
The White House says they don't want to be stood up again if they have another meeting and have these folks show up. If that were to happen, that the North Koreans decide not to show up, what does the White House do then?
I mean, there's a reason that a lot of these meetings usually happen in private, because if you're negotiating with someone as mercurial as North Koreans, if they stand you up, it doesn't have to be front page news. You can do this, you can have this back and forth. I think the problem now is that we're seeing this all exposed. And I'm very much for transparency. I'm a journalist, but I think some diplomatic processes need to happen behind closed doors. So I think if they are stood up again, I think you just go on and you keep trying to have this meeting.
And what will you be watching for in the coming days?
I'll be watching for, like everyone else, Trump's Twitter feed and kind of seeing how he shows this. But Moon tomorrow said he's going to talk more about what was going on with the meetings. We have very few details, so I think we'll know a lot more tomorrow. And then as things get closer to June 12th, stay on this roller coaster.
And they're 12 hours ahead, so tomorrow for them is evening tonight. So
yes,
we'll be
indeed.
watching. We'll be covering all of it. Thank you very much, Isaac Stonefish.